For over 2 centuries, Oak Island has kept its secrets buried deep beneath its soil. Silent tunnels, hidden chambers, and legends whispered through generations about Templars, pirates, and royal treasures. But today, the mystery has taken a stunning turn. Just days ago, Rick Lagina and his team of experts confirmed laboratory test results that revealed artifacts worth more than $78 million. Yes, you heard that right. This isn't rumor or speculation. It's backed by science. These relics weren't just unearthed. They were carefully analyzed by specialists who verified their age, purity, and surprising connection to a world far older than historians ever imagined. Imagine holding gold and metalwork that may have crossed oceans long before Columbus set sail. Picture ancient manuscripts, mysterious symbols, or rare alloys hidden under layers of stone, waiting for Rick and his crew to bring them into the light. As word spreads through the archaeological community, new questions are being asked. Who placed these priceless artifacts on Oak Island? Were they Templar relics, pirate loot, or royal secrets smuggled across the Atlantic? And why were they buried so deep? Stay with us, because what comes next could completely rewrite the history of Oak Island. But first, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Before we dig deeper, let's uncover the truth together. This story begins quietly, long before any cameras arrived, back when Oak Island was more legend than land. Around 2018, after a powerful Atlantic storm battered Smith's Cove, local fishermen reported seeing a strange metallic shimmer beneath the torn-up shoreline, something too vivid to ignore. Those coastal rumors soon intertwined with fragments of parchment found inside an old maritime chest. Each brittle scrap carried faint markings believed to connect to 15th or 16th century European travelers. That discovery reignited Rick Lagina's determination, pulling him back to the island's mysterious core. By 2020, excavation zones near the Money Pit reached unprecedented depths. Every strike of the shovel seemed heavier, as if the ground itself resisted surrendering its secrets. Underground air grew dense and humid, 22% higher than surface readings. Instruments began detecting subtle magnetic interference, faint ripples that disrupted even handheld tools. The ground seemed to pulse beneath Rick's boots, like a buried heartbeat echoing through centuries. Something more than treasure was stirring below, an unspoken message from the past. Guided by instinct and faint geological clues, Rick's crew pressed forward through layers of earth older than colonial history. After 9 days of continuous surveying, traces of metallic residue began to appear in the soil. Then came the moment that changed everything. Late one evening, while clearing collapsed tunnel debris, Rick's trowel struck an unfamiliar surface. Not wood, not stone, but something smoother and cold. The team dug carefully, uncovering narrow passages that exhaled trapped air from centuries past. The temperature dropped sharply, down 6 degrees Celsius within only 15 feet, signaling that they were approaching a sealed chamber untouched by time. Here, the line between legend and reality began to blur. Heavy timber beams framed an engineered shaft that shouldn't have existed, its precise cuts too deliberate to be natural. The tunnel system branched into multiple corridors, twisting like a maze built for protection. As days turned into nights underground, the crew followed faint tool marks carved along the walls, evidence of ancient craftsmanship. Their path led them to an eerie chamber where humidity spiked beyond 90%. Water dripped steadily from timbers older than any map of Nova Scotia could explain. At the center of the chamber was a mound of loose soil, different from the rest, as if placed intentionally. Clearing it away inch by inch, they revealed the edge of a carved surface. Under the glow of their lanterns, the form took shape. A 3-foot-tall statue, its face worn smooth by time, but its stance still proud and protective. Beneath it rested a cluster of dull, mud-coated objects. Using delicate brushes and vacuums, the team uncovered a sealed stone box. Inside lay fragments of meticulously worked metal, surprisingly dense, clearly precious, and perhaps the first tangible proof that Oak Island's greatest legend might finally be real. At the base of the statue, faint engravings emerged, crossed lines, intersecting circles, perhaps a map, or maybe a warning. No one spoke. Rick placed his palm against the cold surface, sensing that whoever had hidden it here wanted it to be found, but only after great effort. Still, the team pressed on. The chamber floor hinted at more beneath, and their instruments picked up signs of another cavity below. With deliberate care, they prepared to descend further, unaware that this single statue marked only the beginning of the greatest discovery Oak Island had ever concealed. By early 2021, the excavation had gone far beyond any known structures, reaching depths no modern team had ever recorded. Every new layer told its own story, the soil like pages in an ancient book. First came soft coastal sediment, then jagged seams of mineral, and finally an almost engineered mixture of clay and packed gravel. At about 90 feet below the surface, Rick's instruments detected a strange pattern. Void spaces repeating roughly every 14 to 17 meters. It was the unmistakable sign of deliberate underground construction. Yet no historical map, no colonial record, and no local legend had ever mentioned anything like it. As they dug deeper, the island itself seemed to change. The air grew thinner, and cold droplets of water trickled down the tunnel walls, maintaining a steady temperature of 6 to 7 degrees Celsius, untouched by the warmth above. And then, shockingly, they found tunnels where no tunnels should exist. One passage stretched perfectly straight for nearly 30 feet. Another curved abruptly, as if designed to confuse or protect. Laser scans suggested these tunnels extended far beyond the known money pit network, possibly connecting to even older flood systems. Around 105 feet down, the crew struck something unmistakably man-made. Square wooden beams appeared, braced together like the steps of a hidden staircase. Later testing revealed the wood dated between the early 1400s and 1600s, centuries older than any documented European presence in the region. The cuts were too precise to be accidental, the craftsmanship deliberate and refined. There was still no treasure in sight, but the architecture itself was a treasure of history and mystery. The descent grew riskier with each passing day. Unstable water channels sometimes surged without warning, flooding the shafts with icy seawater. On 3 occasions, the crew was forced to retreat within minutes as the tunnels filled at alarming speeds, 10 to 18 liters per second, far faster than normal groundwater flow. Yet they refused to stop. This was no longer just a search for gold. It had become a quest to understand the island's purpose. Under the flicker of lantern light, carvings began to appear on the damp stone walls. Compass stars, interlocking spirals, and strange symbols that defied interpretation. Metallurgical readings showed traces of silver and a bronze-like alloy embedded in the rock, suggesting that something metallic had once been dragged or stored here long ago. Rick noticed that some fragments reflected light differently than natural minerals, too deliberate, too shaped to be random. Every piece was carefully documented, sealed, and preserved. The deeper they went, the more intense the feeling became. Not fear, but presence. A quiet awareness, as if something ancient was waiting in the dark ahead. At a depth of 112 feet, part of the tunnel collapsed, forcing the team to spend nearly 9 hours clearing debris. Beneath the rubble, they uncovered a narrow shaft plunging even deeper into the earth. Carefully, they reinforced the entry with timber braces, then Rick descended first. The ground below felt unnaturally smooth, stone polished by countless hands over centuries. And there, half buried in compacted silt, stood another statue, about 1 meter tall, carved from pale stone unlike anything found on the island. Its surface was weathered, its features worn away, but its stance was unmistakable, upright, intentional, watching. Beneath the statue lay fragments of hammered metal and a small sealed chest. Its lid was etched with the same intersecting lines and symbols that adorned the tunnel walls. The air grew heavy. Instruments recorded a sharp 3-degree temperature drop and humidity above 92%. Clear signs that this chamber had been sealed, untouched for centuries. Every movement was deliberate, every gesture careful. Tools were set aside for delicate brushes. The chest was gently lifted, the statue secured, and every angle documented in precise detail. Ground-penetrating scans of the chamber floor revealed another void beneath them, deeper still. The journey wasn't over. With the statue behind them and the promise of greater mysteries below, the team prepared to descend once again into a darkness older than memory itself, toward whatever secret waited in the island's ancient heart. By mid-2022, after weeks of cautious tunneling beneath the statue chamber, the crew encountered a thin layer of tightly packed clay. It resisted every instrument, almost as if protecting what lay beneath. Scans showed a dense cluster about 40 centimeters below the surface, too symmetrical to be natural. Switching back to brushes, they began scraping carefully, centimeter by centimeter, until the corner of a crafted metal object appeared, faintly gleaming under their headlamps. It was small, no larger than a human palm, but unmistakably man-made. The edges were softened with age, and along its surface ran a series of tiny repeating lines, perhaps writing, perhaps symbols. Rick turned it in his hand, silent, feeling its unexpected weight. Initial handheld XRF scans showed the metal to be over 85% pure, far beyond anything known from crude colonial-era smelting. As they cleared more clay, additional objects began to emerge. The first were coins, thin, irregular discs of hammered gold, their surfaces worn nearly smooth. Yet on two of them, faint markings survived, a crowned crest and a star-shaped cross. These symbols hinted at origins possibly tied to 15th or 16th century maritime trade routes, though Oak Island lay far from any documented path of that era. Time seemed to slow inside the tunnel. Just beyond the coins, the team uncovered several sealed metal plates coated in a thick layer of tar so stubborn that even after 3 hours of steaming, only fragments of the designs beneath were visible. Faint geometric framing suggested these plates had been ceremonial, crafted to endure. Testing later showed that the tar contained natural resin compounds not native to Nova Scotia, evidence that the objects had traveled great distances before being buried here. Then came the most delicate discoveries, fragments of jewelry wrapped in fibrous cloth, possibly linen. Though incomplete, the craftsmanship was unmistakable. Curved gold prongs, inset stones, and a crescent-shaped ornament inlaid with deep blue enamel. Together, the fragments weighed nearly 2.4 kilograms, though full restoration would be required for accuracy. Each piece seemed to reflect a culture that prized beauty as much as secrecy. Yet it wasn't the gold that silenced the team. It was the realization of what these artifacts represented. Every item felt intentional, like a message sent across centuries, waiting for this very moment to be revealed. Rick sensed it immediately. This was no random hoard scattered by chance. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to hide these treasures, layering tar, wrapping cloth, sealing chambers, and constructing tunnels with precision, as if they intended one day to return, but never did. Then came a discovery unlike any before. A small stone box, its lid engraved with ridged patterns, 3 intersecting arcs, and a central hollow. When lifted, it was heavier than expected, weighing nearly 9 kilograms. Inside were tightly packed fragments of gold, iron, and a darker alloy that the scanners couldn't immediately identify. Nothing about this find was accidental. Every object seemed curated, protected, and placed with purpose. As the team stood in silence, a realization settled over them. This was history itself, speaking from a forgotten world. A world that may have crossed oceans in secret, hidden its legacy in fear, and preserved its truth for a future only now coming to light. As Rick carefully sealed each artifact for laboratory testing, deeper scans revealed something astonishing. Another cavity just 6 meters below. This one was larger than any chamber they had found so far, and the metallic readings appeared almost continuous, suggesting that an even greater trove might lie beneath the clay, untouched and waiting to feel human presence for the first time in centuries. The story was far from over. It was pressing deeper into the unknown heart of the Earth. By late 2022, after weeks of excavation and cataloging, a difficult decision had to be made. The artifacts, the statue, gold fragments, sealed metal plates, could no longer remain hidden beneath the island, known only to a small team. Their true worth wasn't measured in gold, but in truth. Rick understood that only scientific testing could unlock the story buried within those ancient metals. With the utmost caution, every piece was placed in nitrogen-regulated cases and transported to a specialized materials analysis laboratory in Halifax. Each transfer was meticulously documented, with humidity and temperature carefully monitored to prevent further degradation. Not a single new fingerprint was added. And then came the hardest part: waiting. For 26 long days, the Oak Island team worked in a strange silence. Excavations continued, but every heartbeat echoed with the same question: were these relics truly ancient? The lab performed a battery of tests: isotopic analysis, radiometric dating, gold purity assessment, and spectrographic scans on the plates and jewelry fragments. The statue underwent microfracture analysis to determine the origin of its stone, while even the tar layers were examined and found to contain resin compounds consistent with sources from the Mediterranean. Rumors began to trickle back before the official report arrived. The purity levels were exceptional, between 83% and 92%. Stone dating placed the artifacts between 1450 and 1650 CE, and alloy traces matched old-world metallurgical techniques. Still, the team waited for official confirmation. When the sealed envelope finally arrived, the room fell silent. Rick held it for a long moment, his palms cold against the paper. Slowly, he broke the seal. The results were beyond belief. The artifacts were authentic, crafted centuries ago, and chemically linked to materials originating across the Atlantic, long before any known colonial presence in Nova Scotia. The lab notes suggested they could have been transported by early explorers, perhaps even before recorded maritime routes existed. The total estimated value exceeded $78 million, but the true significance was far greater. Among the finds, a gold-inlaid crescent ornament bore faint, undecipherable inscriptions, clearly a written language, though worn by time. The team sat in stunned silence. A few members wept quietly, tears of disbelief, relief, and reverence. Years of digging, of setbacks and storms, of refusing to give up, it had all been worth it. The island's heartbeat was real. These weren't legends anymore. They were proof. But proof brought new questions. Who had placed these relics here? Why had they been sealed beneath engineered tunnels? And what deeper truth still slept below the surface? The team spread the laboratory images across the table, scanning each one for answers. One image caught everyone's attention: a metal plate engraved with intersecting lines forming a wide, sweeping arc. Under magnification, the pattern resembled not decoration, but a map. Lines curving westward, as though tracing ancient ocean routes toward destinations long forgotten. That single image changed everything. It hinted that this discovery wasn't the end of the Oak Island mystery, but the beginning of something even larger. With the lab confirmation secured, Rick returned to the tunnels with renewed determination. The data suggested that the strongest metallic signatures lay deeper still, just beyond the cavity, identified 6 meters below the previous chamber. Instrument readings showed clusters of conductivity, concentrated as though around a buried cache. If the first chamber held gold and artifacts, what lay below could be something far greater. Once more, the team prepared to descend, lights cutting through the untouched dark, hearts pounding with the weight of history. Somewhere below, the next chapter waited, silent, patient, and heavier than gold. By early 2023, news of the confirmed discovery, ancient treasures valued at more than $78 million, transformed Oak Island from a quiet enigma into the center of worldwide fascination. News of the discovery spread rapidly through academic circles. At first, archaeologists examined the lab reports in disbelief. Experts in early transatlantic exploration began cross-checking centuries-old voyage logs, searching for any clue that could connect to the metal plates or jewelry fragments recovered from Oak Island. The unusually high purity of the metals, the faint inscriptions, and the traces of Mediterranean resin only deepened the intrigue. Within days, interest in the island skyrocketed. Visitor requests rose by more than 220%, and inquiries poured in from universities, museums, and archives around the world. Some historians hope to confirm legends of forgotten voyages that may have predated the Age of Discovery. Others searched for answers to mysteries buried in half-finished manuscripts. And of course, treasure hunters arrived as well, eyes shining with excitement at the thought of more hidden chambers beneath the island's clay. But not everyone came for gold or glory. Some traveled thousands of miles simply to stand upon the soil where history had spoken again. A professor from Spain studied images of the metal plates and quietly remarked that their markings resembled navigation symbols used on secret maritime routes, whispered among explorers who never returned. A research team from Italy claimed to recognize the crescent inlay pattern on one of the jewelry fragments, possibly connected to relics smuggled out of the Mediterranean during periods of upheaval centuries ago. Through it all, Rick remained steady. Amid the flood of cameras, reporters, and curious experts, he never lost sight of the truth. These artifacts were not trophies, they were voices. Each carried centuries of purpose, crafted with intent. To Rick, they were never meant to sit behind museum glass, but to tell a story no book had ever dared to record. Every discovery, the pale stone statue, the tar-sealed plates etched with arcs, the faint engravings that hinted at journeys beyond known maps, seemed to form part of a greater narrative. Piece by piece, they suggested a chapter of human history that had been deliberately erased or forgotten. Theories began to emerge like tides returning to shore. Secret voyages that vanished without record, exiled scholars fleeing fallen kingdoms, protectors safeguarding sacred knowledge from a world not yet ready to understand it. Each possibility felt heavier than gold. But one truth rose above them all. Oak Island was never just a legend. It had been waiting, patient and silent, for the right hands to uncover its voice. As researchers analyzed the symbols on the metal fragments, they noticed patterns aligning with ancient celestial maps, paths once used by early navigators to chart the stars. When digitally reconstructed, the arcs converged westward toward an uncharted point deep across the Atlantic. Early mathematical modeling estimated the likelihood of an intentional transoceanic route at nearly 67%. It was as if the island itself had come alive, breathing through every new revelation. Each visitor left with a lingering feeling that this land was more than earth and stone. It was memory. The tunnels, chambers, and carved platforms beneath Oak Island were not random structures. They were deliberate, precise. Together, they formed a story written in architecture, a message that was still unfolding. One evening, Rick gathered his team beneath the main dig entrance. They studied the latest scans in silence. Beneath the chamber where the first artifacts had been uncovered, the instruments detected another anomaly, larger and deeper than any before. Its reflective signature hinted at dense material, possibly metal, stacked across nearly 4 meters of space. The team knew what had to be done. Equipment was checked, conditions measured, and every movement planned. Because whatever lay below might not just complete the puzzle, it could rewrite everything they thought they knew about Oak Island. With lamps burning steady and hearts pounding with anticipation, they began their descent once more, moving down into the silent dark toward what they hoped would be the final chamber, and perhaps the truth itself. As the long Atlantic evening settled in, a soft red light washed over Oak Island. Rick Lagina stood at the edge of the excavation site, staring down into the opening that had consumed years of his life. Below him waited the most powerful discovery ever drawn from the island's guarded depths. Weeks earlier, after careful excavation through the labyrinth of booby-trapped clay, seawater tunnels, and ancient timber reinforcements, Rick had uncovered what at first appeared to be a massive stone figure.